Ankin Ma'at, Ankin Ma'at. I'm so pleased that you've joined us for Kemetic Ascension, brought to you by the Shrine of Ma'at. As you probably know, my name is Jabari Osaze, also known as Heru Jenen Ma'at Aten Ra. And I'm so honored that you've chosen to spend a part of your Sunday with us. With that, you know what I'm going to ask you. I am going to ask you to answer two questions. Remember, it's two questions. First, how long have you been part of this experience, Kemetic Ascension? And two, where in the world are you? We're trying to find out much more about how far our reach is. So I'm asking how long you've been partaking in, been a part of Kemetic Ascension, and where in the world you are. Give us a big ancient African shout out. Give us a Kemetic shout out so we know where you are. Do we have any responses?
Just one so far. Just coming in slowly. Terry Green.
Terry Green. I probably went much more quickly into things. Terry Green, let us know where you are, where you're coming to us from.
Deidre, Louisiana.
Wonderful. Ankin Ma'at, Ankin Ma'at.
First time.
First time. Wonderful. Ankin Ma'at to you.
We have Minnie Williams from Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Ankin Ma'at.
2 years, and she's a sacred woman.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Ankin Ma'at to one of our sacred women, part of the family of the Shrine of Ptah, which is where Anika and I were made priests, where we were initiated back in 1998.
Tahuti Ma'at Ra Sirius.
Tuti Ma'at Ra Sirius, Ankin Ma'at to you, Ankin Ma'at to you. He's always here with us. I know he's also one of Sonetter's moderators. Ankin Ma'at, dear brother.
Send Jason Holmes out in Lincoln, Nebraska.
One of our full members, Ankin Ma'at. Ankin Ma'at, I'm so pleased that you're here with us. Good brother. My history buff like me.
Sinette Lisa Attaway out in Philly.
Ankin Ma'at, another one of our full members. Ankin Ma'at, Sinette Lisa, how are you?
We have Sinette Yesheria Sakinara.
One of our full members. Where is she at now?
North Dakota.
North Dakota, right. See, I was going to say North Dakota, but I wasn't sure. Ankin Ma'at, Ankin Ma'at. I don't know if I know anybody else that's in North Dakota. She's the only one. Ankin Ma'at to you.
We have LAS, says Peace and Black Power. Let us know where you're from.
Ankin Ma'at, where are you?
Sinette Tashi is here. How you doing? Out in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Ankin Ma'at, another one of our full members and one of the members of the Lighthouse community. Ankin Ma'at to you, Sinette.
We have Nana Ephraim, also aka Kwame.
Ankin Ma'at.
Just back from Moree. Oh wow.
Just back from Moree. Oh, that's Kwame Ron.
Yes.
Nana Ephraim. I still got to get his name. Ankin Ma'at to you.
I was supposed to be there.
Oh man. Moree is the city in the central region of Ghana that we are all installed in. Nana Ephraim, who we previously knew as Kwame Ron, not previously, jointly know as Kwame Ron. He actually was installed with us. So when you see the pictures of our installment, you'll see Anika, myself, and two other good brothers. And we had a good time together. So hopefully we'll see you. He's out in, I know he's in Ohio. He might also be in Cleveland. So definitely hopefully we see you on this side of the waters and on that side of the water. It's good to know that you're out there doing the work, brother.
Yeah, San Daniel Roche.
Ankin Ma'at, San Daniel LaRoche, the good eye doctor. I'm really hoping that he is able to stomach some of the craziness that's going on, because I know sometimes when he's on Sunday, he comes on, he's like, what is happening? It is crazy. I know. Ankin Ma'at to you.
We have Malvin Daniels out in Arizona, Phoenix.
What's that name?
Malvin Daniels.
Malvin Daniels. Ankin Ma'at. Ankin Ma'at. Anika's maiden name is Daniel, so maybe he's part of your family.
Family out in Arizona.
Yeah, right. Ankin Ma'at.
Terry Green says they're from St. Nick Projects. Oh,
Really?
in Olive Branch, Mississippi.
Wow. From right across the street?
No, but
But
in Olive Branch, Mississippi.
But in Olive Branch, Mississippi right now. Yeah. But he's saying he's from good old St. Nick right across the street. Right across the street. Yeah, Ankh and Ma'at. I was my brain. I haven't gotten a lot of sleep, folks. I was about to go into a riff about Saint Nick being the personages that created Santa Claus and why a complex in our community we were named after Santa Claus. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation that Terry and I can have. Ankh and Ma'at to you.
We have Teak Wellbeing out in Boston.
Ankh and Ma'at in Boston?
Yeah, Tika out in Boston. And Sacred Woman.
Ankh and Ma'at to you.
Send Tahuti Forever.
Send Tahuti Forever, Ankh and Ma'at. I have not spoken to him. I have been slacking because I have been absolutely busy. But we need to catch up. Ankh and Ma'at. Yes. Out in Phoenix, out in Benue.
Send that Cheryl out in Houston. Which was for 6 years.
Ankh and Ma'at. Sinette Cheryl has been one of the most active members of the Shrine of Ma'at. Ankh and Ma'at to you.
Aton Amun-Ra out in Chicago, and Shemshu Heru.
Yes, one of our active members out in the Windy City. Ankh and Ma'at to you, dear brother. Studies Kemetic constantly. He's one of the ringers in the room, right? So Ankh and Ma'at.
Let's see. Nahisi Ankh Sakem out in Las Vegas.
Ankh and Ma'at. Nahisi, have we met when I go to Vegas? I should be in Vegas sometime in February again, next month. So Ankh and Ma'at to you. Have we met? Ankh and Ma'at. Oh no, wait, Nahisi. Yes, I saw you at the tour. I saw him at the tour. I met him this time for the first time at the King Tut tour. I just listen. My brain is moving a little slowly. Yes, Ankh and Ma'at. Good to see you, dear brother. Good to know that you're there.
Minnie Williams. Lived in Minot for 7 years, graduated from Minot State or Minot State. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that.
Ankh and Ma'at? I don't know Minot.
Or Minot, M-I-N-O-T, Minot.
Ankh and Ma'at, I don't know where that is. Ankh and Ma'at, tell us where that is.
It's St. Gavin.
Ankh and Ma'at out in the DMV area. How are you doing, dear brother? How are you doing? We need to figure out when we're going to get the full members together again too. It seems like we're only seeing folks once a year. Ankh and Ma'at.
Yes. He's out in the DMV.
Yeah, he's in the DMV area. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Deidre, you're asking what does that mean? I'm not sure what you're referring to, but
maybe Ankh and Ma'at.
Ankh and Ma'at, maybe that means life in balance.
Life in balance or living in balance. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. For a very long time, folks that came out of the Shrine of Ptah family that was founded by our elder Baba Heru Ankh Ra Samad Se Ptah used to simply say Hetepu. Hetepu means like blessings or peace, right? And several years back, he suggested that we say something that might even be a little bit more meaning to practitioners. So he suggested we say Ankh and Ma'at, and so that is what we say now. It simply is an acknowledgement that we are adherents to the traditions of Ma'at, Wat Ma'at, the way of Ma'at, and in that sense, saying Ankh and Ma'at to each other is a reminder. So that's what we're saying. And Ma'at is, because I think this is one of the folks that's relatively new, Ma'at is the order of the universe. In the New Kingdom, they began to describe Ma'at as also as a set of principles or values that you'll often hear as the 42 negative confessions. More on that later. Ankh and Ma'at.
I looked up Minot State. It's in North Dakota, so she's actually reaching out to
Oh, that's what that is. Yeah. Got it. Ankh and Ma'at. So that's another person out from North Dakota. Ankh and Ma'at.
We have Hero Asar Ankh Amun Ra out in Dallas, Texas, with us for 3.5 years.
Ankh and Ma'at. Anika loves saying that name. Ankh and Ma'at.
Shane the Watcher, good morning, good to see you.
Ankh and Ma'at, dear brother, how are you?
We have Musa.
I'm assuming he's waiting for Ant-Man, which comes out next month. Ankh and Ma'at.
Musa Nkele, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, out in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Wow. Are you in Johannesburg, South Africa right now? Or are you from Joburg, South Africa? That's what I want to know.
The Ajanakan Malo, good to see you.
Out in Florida, Ankh and Ma'at, one of our full members. Ankh and Ma'at, Ankh and Ma'at.
Ayadela, tell us where you're from. Welcome.
Ankh and Ma'at.
There's Shenka out in the VA.
She's in the DMV area as well. Ankh and Ma'at to you. We communicated this week. Ankh and Ma'at.
Tahuti Ma'at Rasiri says, let's support the channel, thumbs up.
Ankh and Ma'at, he's doing his moderator gig, right? Doing moderator. We forget to say some things up. Ankh and Ma'at.
We have Siata Omoreji, I hope I'm saying that right, from Nigeria.
Ankh and Ma'at, from Nigeria or in Nigeria? Ankh and Ma'at.
Gerald Westbrook. It says Brittany. Okay, let us know where you're from. We have Sharice from Cleveland.
Ankh and Ma'at.
We have DC Sunisi Mecca. Sorry if I'm butchering your names today. I really apologize.
Ankh and Ma'at.
They said they met you at the King Tut tour.
Really? What was the name again?
So DC Sunisi Mecca.
Ankh and Ma'at. I'm trying to put a face with the name. Ankh and Ma'at to you.
We have Rotu or RO2 to you. Welcome. Let us know where you're from.
Ankh and Ma'at to you.
James Watkins. Let us know where you're from.
Ankh and Ma'at. Ankh and
Jeremy
Ma'at.
Browder out in Mobile, Alabama.
Ankh and Ma'at. Are you related to Anthony Browder? Brother Tony, our good friend. Ankh and Ma'at.
Jaheem Ray. Who says Ant-Man next month. He's slipping but can't wait. He's from Virginia.
Ankh and Ma'at. Ankh and Ma'at.
Musa says this is home.
This is home, meaning that he is in South Africa. Ankh and Ma'at to you. Wow, so that's got to be the furthest far away that we are speaking. Ankh and Ma'at to you. And definitely, hopefully we'll start traveling to South Africa. It's one of those places that should be on our list, really, quickly, actually.
I see Terry Green has started a $50 challenge to the family for a donation, so we appreciate you.
Ankh and Ma'at.
Wow.
We would appreciate that. Ankh and Ma'at. As one of our priests says, we don't do this for money, but it takes money to do it. You better believe it does. In terms of internet access, the highest internet access we could get, the machines that we use, all of it. So Ankh and Ma'at and Dua to you. Thank you.
James Blackett says that he's out in Baltimore, Maryland.
Ankh and Ma'at, be more in the house.
Siata says that they're in Nigeria. They need us. When are we coming?
Oh boy. If you have good connections, we would love to come to Nigeria. We have always been told, come to Nigeria is beautiful. It is the most populous nation in Africa, and we definitely need to go. But we've also been told, go to Nigeria when you have someone that can assist you in Nigeria, so you don't just end up in the airport not knowing what you're doing. So if you have some good connections, we would love to come to Nigeria.
Tassetti from Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City.
Ankh and Ma'at, Tassetti, wonderful name. Ankh and Ma'at.
We're the wonderful couple, the Schaefers in the house.
The Schaefers in the house. What time is it where you are right now? You're probably 6 or 7 hours ahead, I would think, right, Anika? Or is it as little as 5? Because we went back, right? No, you fall forward.
I think it's 6, but I'm not sure.
So it's probably 5 or 6 right now, hours ahead. Ankh and Ma'at to you.
So since Susie Fever says that Melvin Daniels is his brother, he was the main support helping to put together the week.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Ankh and Ma'at. I remember that. Ankh and Ma'at to you. Ankh and Ma'at. I remember that. Ankh and Ma'at.
We have Kali Hercules, Maryland.
Ankh and Ma'at to you.
And Abu Jamar is here.
Ankh and
Between
Ma'at.
all of his movies
He's
and albums.
doing a lot right now. He's doing a whole lot right now. And with all the things that he's doing, so many of the things that we've seen on Facebook mean that he's not going to be, I mean, a lot of the stuff is perspective. So he's going to be even busier. And congratulations. I heard that you've been asked to play Chuck D from Public Enemy. That's going to be amazing. Ankh and Ma'at.
Shakers is 7 hours ahead.
7 hours. 7 hours. Wow.
And Musa is welcoming us to South Africa.
Oh, wow. We would love to come to South Africa. We have a college friend there that whenever we do speak to her, she says, I don't know why you haven't come to South Africa yet. And we just can't wait to go. So one of these days we'll probably have to try to make it push it further up on our list of places to visit.
Much more, Abu Jamar.
Much more. We would actually love to take groups to South Africa because that's certainly one of the places that folks would love to come visit. Ankh and Ma'at to you. That's mostly everybody. Ankh and Ma'at, I'm sure there'll be more. After we come off of our live, we see that folks are still answering the question. Ankh and Ma'at to you all. We're so pleased that you decided to spend part of your Sunday with us. We know that there's so many other things that you could be doing. And you are here because you were one of those folks that remembers the traditions of our ancient African ancestors, the traditions that existed long before all of those modern and well-known Western nations and cities ever were conceived. And so I must say to you, Ankh and Ma'at to you, greetings to you, and we're glad that you are here. With that, you probably know that we begin anything of importance with the ritual, with the ceremony that was put into its current configuration by our elder, Baba Heru Ankh Ra Samad Sepata, known as the opening of the way. And we're hoping that you are going to do the opening of the way with us because this is not theater, right? This ritual is something that you should incorporate into your own practice. You should do the opening of the way whenever you're about to do anything important. And certainly your day is important. So at least do the opening of the way early in the morning. So you're going to stand in a position of adoration, which means you're going to stand just with your left foot slightly astride like you're taking a step. And then you're going to expose your palms in front of you. And as you expose your palms in front of you, you can put the left palm just a little further forward. The right palm, therefore, will be a little further back, and it can be a little further down. Remember not to break your wrist like this. We've never seen anybody like this. If you're going to break your wrist, break it ever so slightly. You can even have them straight. This is known today as the position of adoration. It is a position that you will see replicated on the walls, replicated in papyri, all throughout the wonderful period that Kemet was a powerful nation. So as you stand here, you're then going to take a breath. Remember to breathe from your abdomen, not from here, but from here. And as you take that deep breath in, you should be pushing your stomach out and try to keep it pushed out as much as you can. That's how you're going to make sure that you take in the most air and that you're able to control the air as it comes. I just did something that said turn the camera. As it comes back. Come on. One of the movements I made said turn camera. Come on. You see me here, right? Come this way. You know, having a robotic camera once again, as a Kemetic spirituality practitioner. Yeah, see, I knew that was the movement. I don't always get it though. Using a camera that sees an open palm as a movement, as a gesture to move, can be a liability when you're a Kemetic spirituality practitioner. Anyway, just know that as we stand here, you're going to take that deep breath from your abdomen and then control the breath. Try to breathe as much as you can and send it slowly up. And as you're doing that, you are going to be chanting the word for everlasting life, which is Ankh. That's the movement that needs it. See this hand? Which means Ankh. Stop laughing at me. Okay, and as you do that, it's basically not looking at us though. I think it has you.
Yeah.
Oh, see, that's why she's saying let's go. It's on me. It's good. Anyway, you're going to chant, and as you chant Ankh, it's a nasal sound. You're trying to send the energy from here all the way up through here. Okay? So let's go. Let's begin.
Anetrak in Bet-Het.
Anetrak in Bet-Het.
Nuke in Bet-Het.
Nuke in Bet-Het. Anetrak Hapi.
Anetrak Hapi.
Nuke Hapi.
Nuke Hapi.
Twal Winter.
Twal Winter.
Turn to the right.
Anetrak Serket.
Anetrak Serket.
Nuke Serket.
Nuke Serket. Anetrak Kebsenu.
Anetrak Kebsenu.
Nuke Kebsenu.
Nuke Kebsenu.
Twal Winter.
Twal Winter. Anetrak As.
Anetrak As.
Nuke As.
Nuke As. Anetrak Amset.
Anetrak Amset.
Nuke Amset.
Nuke Amset.
Twal Winter.
Twal Winter. Anetrak Neat.
Anetrak Neat.
Nuke Neat.
Nuke Neat. Anetrak Dwamutef.
Anetrak Dwamutef.
Nuke Dwamutef.
Nuke Dwamutef.
Twal Winter.
Twal Winter. Anetrak Newt.
Anetrak Newt.
Nuke Newt.
Nuke Newt. Anetrak Geb.
Anetrak Geb.
Nuke Geb.
Nuke Geb.
Twal Winter.
Twal Winter.
Anetrak Shu.
Anetrak Shu.
Shu. Shu. Shu. Shu. Nuke Shu. You're Tough Newt.
Huh? Oh, Anetrak Tough Newt.
Anetrak Tough Newt. Tough Newt. Tough Newt. Tough Newt. Tough Newt. Nuke Tough Newt. Twal Winter. Anetrak Paut Interu. Nuke Paut Interu. Anetrak and Boo Interu. Nuke and Boo Interu. Twal Winter. Twal Winter. I'm telling you, dwa, dwa, dwa. This camera has distracted me. I think it distracted both of us while it was moving around all over the place. So, Ankh and Ma'at to you, dwa to you, for doing the opening way with us. Remember, do the opening of the way whenever you are trying to remind yourself of just what you are made of. A very popular scientist says that we are the stuff of stars. That is accurate. We are literally made of the stuff that came from the stars. We are imbued with infinite power, infinite energy. You have to learn how to cultivate these divine powers so that you can do those things that other people only dream of. Please do the opening way to remind yourself of how powerful you actually are. So, we would like to go into what we call Hessi. Hessi is the manner in which our ancient African ancestors in the Happy Valley region galvanized divine energy in harmony, in chanting, in song. And today, because we're going to talk about that important ancestor known as Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, we are going to do what we call the Asar Hessi. It is a Hessi that I wrote with assistance from Anika, and it really is a Hessi that helps us remember the importance of the first of the Westerners, the ancestor of all ancestors, Asar. And so this Hessi reminds us to galvanize that particular energy, to utilize the practice of focusing on the Asar Hessi in our own lives. So please take a listen to the Asar Hessi, mastered and sung by that wonderful family the Schaefers. Are you ready? Let's go.
Asar, Asar, Asara, Asar, Asar, Asara, Asar, Asar, Asara, Asar, Asar, Asara, Meow, 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 Asar, 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 Asara, Asar, Asar, Asara, Asar, Asar, Asara, Asar, Asar, Asara, Meow, 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 Asar, 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 Asara, Asar, Asar, Asara, Asar, Asar, Asara, Asar, Asar, Asara, Meow, 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 Asar, 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 Asara, Asar, Asar, Asara, Asar, Asar, Asara, Asar, Asar, Asara, Meow, 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 Asar,
Ankh and Ma'at, Dua, Dua, Dua. I'm hoping that you enjoyed that rendition of the Asar Hessi. Definitely, it is an important Hessi. It's one of the Hessi that comes directly from the shrine of Ma'at. And I'm hoping that you got the Hessi, you understand the Hessi, so that you can use the Hessi. Later on in today's discussion, I will actually show you the words to the Asar Hessi. You okay over there? Got it? I'll show you the words to the Asar Hessi, just in case you want to know a bit more about how to utilize the Hessi, what we're saying in the Hessi. Hopefully, it will be meaningful to you as it is to us. Just keep in mind that whenever you are using Hessi, what you're really doing is you're asking a particular energy to pervade your entire body, to exist within your being so that you can do a particular set of work that you know you must do. So I really want to say dua to you all for continuing to convince us to do Hessi, and I'm hoping that the rest of you will also benefit from it as well. My pointer is not really working very well today, so I'm going to just do it old school and move it forward. Today, understand that we are talking in the word from the Sebayit about the importance of remembering our ancestors. It's a really good day to remember our ancestors because of the fact that this is the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Weekend, that the federal holiday is actually going to be celebrated tomorrow. Just think about this. This is the first day that people of African descent were able to fight to get recognized on the federal calendar. And the battle to recognize the work of this important ancestor is not done. I don't know if you know this, but in certain parts of the old Confederacy, those spaces that some of you actually live in, one of those states, I believe this is Alabama, actually has a Martin Luther King and Lee Memorial. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about General Lee. I'm talking about the person that fought for the Confederacy, that led the Confederacy to fight to keep Black folks enslaved. They have made that day a celebration of both Martin Luther King and a celebration of the Confederate leader. And so just imagine how noxious and how inappropriate that concept is. The battle to celebrate the work, particularly of African Americans and of Martin Luther King, to bring us into more equality as citizens of the United States is something that is not complete. So today, let's talk about the importance of remembering our ancestors and about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King a little bit. First of all, just a few bits of information about him. Know that he leads the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955. Very important part of his resume. He was a very young pastor at the time when he was doing this. In fact, there were those who were arguing, those who were part of the already established civil rights movement, who were saying maybe he's too young to do this. Maybe he's not seasoned enough to lead this major offensive against segregation here in the South. And so allowing him to do that was something that they did and was extremely important because it elevated him to a national audience. By 1957, he is then head of the Southern Christian Leadership Committee. That's SCLC. He's then the head of that organization. He helps organize the March on Washington for 1963, which is where you see him deliver that famous speech known as the I Have a Dream speech. Unfortunately, so few of us have actually heard the entire speech because it has really, more than anything else, been commodified. It has been used by politicians to say whatever they want to say. And they're only able to do that because most of us have never read or listened to the entire speech. I suggest that this week, you do. He also won a Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. This was absolutely important as well. And he continues to organize. By 1965, he organizes the famous Selma to Montgomery marches that lead to the Bloody Sunday event, where marchers were simply walking to ensure that they would have the right to vote, and they were beaten brutally, so brutally that if you remember the civil rights leader and former congressman John Lewis, who recently passed away, you may remember that he was a young student in that march, and the state officer that confronted him struck him in the head with all of his ability with a nightstick, knocking him unconscious and fracturing his skull. He was so seriously injured that he says that he truly believed that this was the day he was going to die. For the rest of his long life, he suffered with migraines after that incident. So you can just imagine how brutal that particular incident was. He undertakes a struggle against segregation in Chicago housing, because the movement is not just about fighting in the South. Some people would like to have tried to make it sound that that this was something that was only occurring in the South, so that they would be able to pretend our Negroes up here are very happy. That's the kind of thing that they used to say. And you should know that Martin Luther King also came to places like Harlem. In fact, Martin Luther King was stabbed, almost fatally stabbed, literally 6 blocks from where we stand, right at the corner of Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard and 125th Street, which is known as Martin Luther King Boulevard as well. He was stabbed there and actually taken to Harlem Hospital, and they saved his life there by a woman who had some mental challenges. She saw him and she stabbed him, just literally maybe a few centimeters away from his heart. It's believed, the doctor said that if he had coughed or sneezed, he would have died. That's how seriously this particular injury was. But he did recover and continued. You should know that Hoover and the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, who was the head of the FBI, tried to attack him. Well, they attacked him continuously in secret through what was called the counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO. He was a major target of COINTELPRO because Hoover had argued that one of the major aims of the FBI would be to prevent the ascension of a Black Messiah. It's literally what they said. And so they went after him many times. And they also tried to send him letters to convince him to commit suicide. That obviously did not happen. Who knows what else the COINTELPRO did that we're not completely aware of. He also opposed the Vietnam War. He was instrumental in the Voting Rights Act. And in 2000, this is when the federal holiday was initiated. And as you can see on the slide, it's Alabama and Mississippi that have Robert E. Lee Martin Luther King Day on the federal holiday. This was one of their ways to mock the accomplishments of this great African American leader by pairing the holiday with the leader of the Confederacy. This is the situation that we still find ourselves in 2023. How many of you are? I don't think we heard anyone who was actually joining us today from Alabama or Mississippi. But if you are joining us from Alabama and Mississippi,
There's someone from Alabama and 2 people from Mississippi.
oh, wonderful. For those of you who are joining from there, what does your calendar say? What does your local calendar say? What does your federal list of days that you'll have off say? Take a look and let us know if you're still seeing. I'm quite sure it's still on the books, but I don't know whether they're advancing it. I wouldn't be surprised if they were in this particular backlash against Black advancement that we're in right now. But I'm wondering if you are seeing still Robert E. Lee Martin Luther King Day. I'd love to know what your experience is with it. Okay. There are many other things that we would love to share, that I would love to share with you about Martin Luther King. I think that he's a very fascinating person. Look at this quote. Some of you who have been following me and following the Shrine of Ma'at for some time may have heard this, and you might have even seen that I actually described this on Sonnetter as well, something that most people are unfamiliar with. Dr. Martin Luther King, as someone who was also a scholar, wrote a paper en route to his ordination about the influence that the Kemetic tradition played on Christianity. Who knew that? Who knew that? Take a listen to his quote, a quote from his paper, a quote for which he was scolded. His professor told him, oh, don't say this. Listen to what he says. The Egyptian mysteries of Isis and Osiris exerted considerable influence upon early Christianity. These two great Egyptian deities, whose worship passed into Europe, were revered not only in Rome, but in many other centers where Christian communities were growing up. Osiris and Isis, so the legend runs, were at one and the same time brother and sister, husband and wife, but Osiris was murdered, his coffined body being thrown into the Nile, and shortly afterwards, the widowed and exiled Isis gave birth to a son, Horus. Meanwhile, the coffin was washed up on the Syrian coast and became miraculously lodged in the trunk of a tree. This tree afterwards chanced to be cut down and made into a pillar in the palace at Byblos. And there Isis at length found it. After recovering Osiris's dismembered body, Isis restored him to life and installed him as king in the netherworld. Meanwhile, Horus, having grown to manhood, reigned on earth, later becoming the third person of this great Egyptian trinity. Imagine that Dr. Martin Luther King was thinking about how the Kemetic tradition influenced Christianity. How many people are aware of this? If you said this from the pulpit of your local black church right now, you'd almost be run out on a rail. But the thing that I find interesting is at the same time they are chasing you out the church, they probably have those fans. Well, it's December, so not in a lot of places, but they probably have those fans with the image of, as my grandmother used to call him, Martin Luther the King. Not Martin Luther King, Martin Luther the King. That I find quite ironic. Anika?
So we have a comment saying, I don't think I would have led Black people into a racist battle without weapons, but Martin Luther King was a pastor of peace. But that could be dangerous. And what good did it do to keep us in fear of the devil? We should have fought hard.
I think that there is a really interesting way for us to look at this. I honestly would say to you, if those Black folks went to those places to fight with guns, I don't think that the successes they had would have been met. What would have happened is they would have been a violent group and they would have been violently taken down by those folks who are better armed, better organized, and those individuals were actually legal members of law enforcement. They would have been, can you imagine a small community in Birmingham, Alabama, fighting the National Guard, the FBI, and the local police force? You think that they would have won that battle? In fact, I think that what he was doing, please don't forget that nonviolence is an approach. It's not the end all and be all, right? And some folks don't realize that Dr. King had armed people around him. I don't know if you knew that. There's an excellent book called This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed. This nonviolent stuff will get you killed. In fact, I'm probably going to be using it in an upcoming class really soon. You should absolutely take a look at it. The civil rights movement was not simply about not arming yourself, but it was more about standing against inequality, standing against segregation, standing against subjugation in a very public manner so that all of those other people who did not understand your plight would literally say, look at what these authorities are doing. That is what they were doing. It was a strategy rather than a be all and end all. And so I think that we need to look at it that way. I really wonder, I question whether someone who was leading folks in armed rebellion would have had this kind of success in this instance. In this instance, keep in mind, at the time that he was using this strategy, if you were talking about enslaved Africans marching for freedom, that would have been a very different matter than individuals who had already had the false benefit of a 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. These amendments we knew were not being used for the benefit of Black people, so that they could stand on the law and say, this is what we're arguing for. Very different time than it is today. Well, then very different time than it was at the time that Africans were fighting against enslavement. Was there another comment or question, Anika?
Yes, Jeremy Brown, who's in Mobile, Alabama, says that on the calendar it says Martin Luther King Day.
Okay, okay, interesting,
And
interesting.
then another comment. I was so mad when I saw Robert E. Lee being celebrated by our great ancestor Martin Luther King. I placed a red flag and green in front of my yard.
Yeah, to see them being placed together at the same time. Yeah, yeah, it's serious. Martin Luther King wasn't celebrating Robert E. Lee. They're being celebrated together. That's what the state decided to do. I am clear about that, right? The state of Alabama and the state of Mississippi, in recognizing the federal holiday, decided that they were going to celebrate them both together as a mockery. That's what occurred. So look at this very, very interesting, very, very powerful comment coming to us from Dr. Martin Luther King. I think that most people would not have expected that he would have said something like this. So this is from his paper, Knowing, that is called The Influence of the Mystery Religions on Christianity. Martin Luther King Jr., Crozier Theological Seminary paper. He wrote this in 1949. This is before he comes to public consciousness in 1954, 1955. Just think about what that is. Think about how this concept must have also been present in his thinking around the things that Black folks should do. Fascinating to me, quite fascinating. And with that, let's take a look at a quick montage that celebrates Dr. Martin Luther King. And please understand that the song you're hearing, I hope that we don't get dinged for this. We probably will. Maybe I just won't show it. The montage uses the song that was created by Stevie Wonder. And the song that was created by Stevie Wonder, you should know, was created specifically for the holiday. And you should also know that this important day, this important song actually celebrates Stevie Wonder's activism around this. He literally had to fight for the holiday. And so this song was created. It's where Black folks actually get their happy birthday tune. You know, Black folks sing happy birthday differently. This comes from the song that was created for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. How many of you knew that? Did you know that? The happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. That's the song that was created for Martin Luther King. And I'm sure that if you go virtually anywhere, you're going to hear Black people singing it. We're not just singing the song that everyone else does. In fact, I know that when I'm out with family and friends and the waiters come in and sing that for us, we wait till they finish politely and then we sing our song, right? Complete with soul claps and everything, right? Because, you know, that's how we do it. As we are celebrating one of our family members, we're also recognizing someone who really worked diligently for Black folk. Let's continue. So I didn't play it, right? Because I think we'd probably get dinged on YouTube or on, which is crazy, right? This is a song that celebrates Martin Luther King, and they're going to tell us that we can't post it on YouTube. It's crazy. Or even on Facebook, they probably boot us from the live or something to that effect. Anyway, take a look at a section from the article that was actually released today, on January 15th, today, in the New York Times by Esau Macaulay. It's a very interesting article. And the thing that I find so interesting about it is that, once again, it puts forward some of the ideas of Martin Luther King that we're not aware of. One of the things that I think is so interesting is Dr. Martin Luther King was telling Black folks in his speech 4 days before he would be killed at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. He was telling Black folks to stay woke. He didn't use the word stay woke, but listen to the imagery he uses for in really admonishing those folks among us that are doing very little. He said, this is a quote from the article by Esau Macaulay. It says, in 1968, 4 days before he was shot on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his last Sunday sermon at the Washington National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. It was entitled, Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution. Stay woke. Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution. King opened his sermon by recalling the well-known story of Rip Van Winkle, the character in the Washington Irving book of the same name, who slept for 20 years. King notes that when Rip went to sleep, King George III had reigned. And when he awoke, George Washington had become president. Rip Van Winkle had slept through the revolution. King believed that too many Americans, especially those in its churches, were also snoozing through a time ripe for transformation. They needed to wake up to the injustice all around them and make demands for change. Fascinating how he used the same imagery, and we speak it in the same way today. This article also speaks to something else that folks are not aware of. Take a listen to this section of the article. It says, in the Awake sermon, King gave a basic and compelling case for reparations. Did you know that Martin Luther King was fighting for reparations? Some of us think that this battle for reparations is new. Like this is the new generation fighting for reparations. And they don't recognize that there have been individuals in our community that have struggled for reparations for generations. For generations. In fact, there is a sister who fought for reparations, who went to jail for reparations long before the movements of today. What is her name? Who remembers the name of the sister that led the movement for reparations and actually was willing to go to jail for it? I want you to tell me her name and tell me the year that she struggled. You will be surprised. Let's see if anyone, some of you might have taken my history class. Let's see if you remember this. Take a listen to what he says here in his speech. Someone answered? What's the name?
Callie House.
Callie House. Who is that?
Reason.
It's either Senaton or it is our brother Jason. Yes. Yes. Callie House. So many of us have forgotten this sister. We've forgotten her completely. She was willing to struggle for reparations, and the federal government put her in jail for fraud. What was their argument? She should have known that the government was never going to give her reparations. So obviously her argument, her movement was a fraud. Can you imagine? How many of us remember her name? There are people who are arguing for things like ADOS and the struggle for reparations that Tariq Nasheed has galvanized in his foundational Black American argument. But those movements are new. There are people who really struggled for this and gave so much for it as well. Listen to Martin Luther King on reparations. He says, there are those who still feel that if the Negro is to rise out of poverty, if the Negro is to rise out of slum conditions, if he is to rise out of discrimination and segregation, he must do it all by himself. But they never stop to realize the debt that is owed to a people who are kept in slavery for 244 years. In 1863, the Negro was told that he was free as a result of the Emancipation Proclamation being signed by Abraham Lincoln. But he was not given any land to make that freedom meaningful. It was something like keeping a person in prison for a murder for a number of years, and suddenly discovering that that person is not guilty of the crime for which he was convicted. And you don't give him any money to get some clothes to put on his back or to get his feet again in life. Martin Luther King arguing that the United States owed a debt to Black people, a monetary debt to Black people. Fascinating. We ought to study more about him. I think that there are a lot of us who have heard that he was kind of accommodationist, that he was someone that was less radical, but I honestly think that we need to reevaluate him to understand what he was doing. And I'm going to tell you very clearly, I thought that as well. The way that the movement during the civil rights era was described to me is that on one side there was Martin Luther King, on the other side there was Malcolm X. And of course, I was more in favor for the things that Malcolm X was describing. But I want you to be clear, very, very clear, that were it not for that dichotomy, how much would have occurred? How much would have occurred? It was critically important for Martin Luther King to struggle in the manner that he did. Because if they had tried to go to vote with guns, something very different would have occurred. And I think that we need to respect the movement that led to so much advancement for Black people. We're so far away from where we need to be, but clearly we are closer based on this man giving his life. So, you know that we're not going to just leave you in a history lesson, right? This is Kemetic Ascension. We want to talk to you about how to make the veneration of ancestors practical. This is what the Kemetic people did for thousands of years. I want to talk to you about the Kemetic philosophy of ancestral veneration. Look at the individuals you're seeing here. Who are they? Who are the folks that you are seeing on the screen? Who can name them? One of them actually is commemorated in a statue that sits here with us in the shrine as well. Who is this individual? Do you know? Do we have any answers?
Tasseti says Imhotep.
Tasseti says Imhotep.
Mhm.
Yes, on the left of the screen, we see Imhotep, a man who came forward in great excellence in one of the earliest periods of the Kemetic tradition. We're talking about Third Dynasty, really, really early. Really early in the Old Kingdom. Just think that he was one of the world's first recorded doctors. He was an architect engineer. He was a priest. He was an official of state. He was an author. He was one of those folks that we know in the ancient world was most influential, one of the most influential people in the ancient world. How about the one on the right? Somehow I knew that I wasn't going to get an answer for that one. Come on. There are a few people in that room that should know. No answer from Senaton or from Jason or folks that have taken history classes? No?
I'm a Neardis.
Who said Amanirdis?
That's what I'm around.
That she's standing like Amanirdis. That's a good answer, but that's not who we're talking. That's not who that is. She's standing just like the statue of Amanirdis. That's a really good answer, but it's not the answer we're looking for. No answers yet? She is generally depicted with the blackest possible skin. And she and her husband led the revolt against the people who had taken over Kemet for approximately 200 years during the 17th dynasty. She is the first queen of the 18th dynasty. Her husband was Amos. What is her name?
One says Queen T. One says Aset.
Queen T is a little bit later. Same dynasty. A little bit later. Anyone else?
Almost left it to T.
Who said that?
Aton.
Close. Close. People often conflate the names Nefertiti and Nefertari. This is Amos Nefertari. This is Amos Nefertari.
It's a question asking why is she stepping forward like that? Someone said Ahotep, and then you had Shepsut.
Ahotep is her mother. Ahotep is her mother. And she is, I want to say she's the grandmother of Hatshepsut, maybe the grandmother or great grandmother of Hatshepsut. So she is certainly, we're talking about a woman in the line. And that I find extremely interesting because I think that I want to say that she and Amos have their son, his name is man, I'm gonna forget his name now. But I think they have a son, and then that son, he might be Amenhotep the first, who has Tuthmest the first, I think, who is the father of Hatshepsut. I might be missing a ruler in there.
And she marries Tuthmest the second, who dies.
Yes, but her father is Tuthmest the first. So right there, you're connected. Yeah, right there, you're connected. And then, of course, Hatshepsut comes a bit later. But anyway, just know that you're talking about, no, I'm talking about Hatshepsut. That was Hatshepsut I was talking about in her relationship to almost Nefertari. Very important, very, very important ruler. The question is, why is she stepping forward that way? And I'm going to say to you, I don't have a definitive answer for you, but there are a few good arguments. You may notice that we also step with the left foot forward. Some historians will say the reason why this looks this way is because it was created during her life. There's some people who would say that. But that still doesn't really answer the larger question, right? Why would they think that stepping forward left would mean that you are preparing, that you are doing something in life rather than in death? Well, I want you to also know that in some ways, the Kemetic people looked at the left side of the body as the side that gives, and the right side of the body as the side that receives. And I think that in many ways, the living must give and the dead must receive. That must be one of the ways that we're talking about ancestral veneration, right? So in many ways, that could be one of the reasons why you see statues. Now, it can't just be living and dead. Look at the statue of Heru. Heru is a mythological figure. Why is Heru stepping with left foot forward? You're going to see these as well. So I don't think that the answers truly give us a great definitive answer as to why things exist this way. And so I'm hoping that you get that this is a little more complex than it is. But also know that there are individuals that believe that the left side is connected to the heart side, and there are so many other answers that people give. But I would argue that this is fundamentally the concept of giving and receiving is more the reason why we see her stepping left foot forward. Any takes on this, Anika, that you would give? Or is that a decent enough?
That's the way I would.
Okay, good. So the reason why I have these two individuals on the screen is because we believe that both of them were literal historical individuals. That's what we will argue. And looking at them, both of these individuals were elevated to divine ancestors. Western historians would say it in a way that I wouldn't say, but they would say they were worshipped as gods. I think that's a really obtuse way to look at it. But definitely, it was believed that they had lived such a life according to Ma'at that they now sat along with the rest of the Neteru, and they were spoken to as the Neteru. Take a look at this. This is, once again, a piece from one of our Kemetic texts, and it explains the importance of recognizing that our ancestors are not destroyed by death, that in fact, they have the ability to come and go, the ability to be in the land of those who practice Ma'at and to return into the land of the living, to be able to have interaction with those of us who still exist on the physical plane. Listen, while I'm reading this, tell me where this statue is. Now, I ask this question all the time in Kemetic Ascension. I had better have a bunch of answers. Come on now. You are the practitioners. You are those individuals who are seeking to bring the traditions of these great Africans back into existence in the modern world. Tell me whose statue this is and where it is. Where is this statue? Let me read to you this section of the Reyu, Pert, and Heru and Ger. This is the book that has been misnomered the Book of the Dead. It says, "Hail to you, fair in form, Lord of issues, who are springing up forever, and whose double goal is eternity. Turn to me your hands. Give to me food and offerings for my mouth. Let me eat the bread and ken food cake. Let my place be in the great hall, in the presence of the great Inter. I know that the great Inter, to whose nostrils ye present delicacies. Atum is his name. And whether he, whose name is Atum, arises from the east or advances to the west, let his course be my course. Let no one have mastery over my limbs. So this is the concept that those who go into the afterlife have the ability to still operate, to be in existence in a different form in both the land of the afterlife and the land of the living. Do we have any answers to my question? Not one? What? Are y'all slipping today? What's going on? Well, tell me what this image is. Even if you don't know whose image it is, tell me what this image is.
Aton says Mararuka.
Oh, yes, that's the answer. This is from the tomb of Mararuka. This is from the tomb of Mararuka. Good answer. And this is his Ka statue. This is the statue that is in the chapel area of his tomb. And if you look at these stairs that lead up,
Aton says the same thing.
what was he saying?
It's a Ka statue.
It's a Ka statue, yes. And at the top of those stairs, you're seeing a symbol for Hotep or Hetep, the symbol for offerings or blessing. So this is where those who are trying to ensure the continued persistence of his everlasting soul would give offerings to him. Notice that he has one of his hands down like this. And it's like he is receiving the offering.
Yes. So Minnie says he's coming out to eat the offering.
Yes, that's why his right hand is like that. He is receiving the offering.
Aton says he thinks it's in Saqqara.
Yes, it is in Saqqara.
Jason says it's a spirit door.
Yeah, and that is a spirit door.
And Juana says it's fascinating that statue is coming out of the door.
Yes, 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 yes. All excellent, 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 excellent answers and observations. And I want you to know, some of you are going to think there's some people who complain Jabari gives us a lot of history. I will continue to argue that if you are trying to duplicate the greatness of these Africans, the greatness of the most influential individuals in the most influential tradition in the history of humanity, you have to know what they did. And the things that they did, you should be able to take into your practice. How many of you have an ancestral altar? How many of you have sought to feed those ancestors, even in your direct line, who, through their endurance, through their ability to deal with trials and tribulations, allow you to draw breath today? How many of you have given them water to drink and food to eat? Our ancestors believed that if you fed something, it could live. This is a fundamental practice for how we, the practitioners of ancient African spirituality, should behave in the world. If you feed it, it will live. And you see here, Mebaruka receiving divine sustenance for his soul. Yes, Anika.
So Shenkai notes that the left foot is forward.
Yes, because he is moving forward like one of the living, and he is receiving offerings like one who has gone into the Taseket Ma'at, like one has gone into Aaru, like one who exists in the afterlife. That is what you're seeing.
So Finley says, I used to practice these works, they led me to evil. The only way to eternal life is Jesus Christ. He is the truth and the life.
He used to practice these words. Which words did you practice?
Works.
So these works, they led you to evil. What did they lead you to? What did they lead you to? Evil? Really? Family, I'm going to say to you, you know, we have trolls too, right? I want to say to you, brother, instead of dropping something and trying to disrupt, listen carefully. The story of Jesus is supposed to be the story of the one's ability to conquer death. Remember, Jesus allows us all to now have the afterlife, that no one can get to my Father's house but through me. He is saying to you that the way that he walks is the way that you must walk, so that you must be an everlasting soul. There is nothing wrong. You will not hear me say anything negative about that story here, because that story is one that we should all emulate. What I am arguing to you, dear brother, is that that story is not new, that your African ancestors had put forward those concepts for thousands of years. So if this led you to evil, then the same thing you're doing in the church is leading you to evil, friend. The same exact thing. You're probably going to say, well, I have to call the name Jesus. Well, you have to know that there is no J in that language. So you've been calling the wrong name, friend. Please understand that the goal to connect ourselves to the eternal divine, it is so large and so immense that it pervades our inability to capture it in words. The word that you're calling is irrelevant. It is the practice that is important. There's nothing here. If you think that something here will lead you to evil, then the same stuff that you're doing will lead you to evil. The only problem is you are following the copy of a darn copy. Go back to the original source and you will be revealed to be one who is eligible, one who is worthy of the golden afterlife. That is what you have to understand. So instead of being a troll, listen. Instead of being a troll, listen. That same Jesus whose name you mentioned, when his mother was trying to save him from murder as a baby, she didn't go to Jerusalem. She didn't stay in Bethlehem, depending on which story you read. They journeyed to Egypt. So you're telling me that Mary was wrong? Okay. Hopefully that closes the book on trollism. Right? No other comments from Finley, right? Because folks like that like to drop something to disrupt and move. He thinks he's done something. Finley, I hope that you are wise enough, that you are man enough to stand and listen, okay? Because you might learn something. I'd love for you to tell us your age. I might have been a Christian longer than you have been alive. But I'm telling you, this is the tradition that gave birth to your tradition. Go back and fetch it. Let's continue. Let's continue. I don't think people realize that I like trolls. Look at Anika's face. She's like, oh my goodness, what did he start? I like trolls. I wish you were here so I could talk to you. That's who I am. You're not going to knock me off of my stride because of that. My stride comes because I was in your tradition. I know your tradition. You're the one that's speaking ill of this tradition. Let's continue. This is also coming from the book of Coming Forth by Day to Coming Forth Today from Night, known as, unfortunately, the Book of the Dead Today. That is not its name. We called it the Reyu and Pert and Heru and Ger. Listen to what it says. It says, I have bred in Pu and bear in Tepu. You should study where Pu and Tepu were. Let your largesses of this day be granted to me. Offerings of wheat and barley, offerings of vestments, offerings of oxen and ducks, which are offerings for life, health and strength, and also offerings for coming forth by day, in all the forms in which it pleaseth me to come forth in the garden of Aru. They're saying, please give me offerings. They can be vocal offerings. Give me offerings that I can continue to live. If this chapter be known, he will come forth at the garden of Aru. That's one of the names of heaven in the Kemetic concept. There will be given to him the measure of drink and cake, and fields of wheat and barley of 7 cubits. It is the followers of Heru who reap them. For he eateth of that wheat and barley, and he is made whole in his limbs through that wheat and barley. And his limbs spring up, even as with those Neteru, the deities, the divine forces. And he cometh forth in the garden of Aru, in all forms in which it pleases him to come forth. Imagine this. You are so powerful as one who has gone into the afterlife, one has followed Ma'at, that you can come form in any form that pleaseth you. So many of us are in sorrow because we've lost a loved one. I know I still mourn my father. I told you I didn't sleep very much last night, right? When I woke up, I remembered that there was a question I wanted to ask him. And for a quick moment, I said, oh, I have to give him a call later today. Then I realized that if I want to call my father, I cannot use his cell phone. I cannot use his landline. I have to call him through ancestor veneration. There are questions that I still have for you, Winfred Levy Jacobs. And I'm asking to commune with you to receive my answers. That's where I was when I woke up. It was something I wanted to ask my dad. And that was challenging for me. So as you read this, understand that this is describing how your ancestors can come forward in any form to commune with you. In any form to commune with you. Just make sure that you are cultivating your perception so that you can properly interpret and receive it. Yes, Anika.
The question asking, are the emerald tablets in Kemet or older?
The emerald tablets are a later attempt to describe the wisdom of Kemet. The emerald tablets never existed during the time that the Kemetic people were in their heyday, but later people were trying to describe the wisdom of Kemet. And so they wrote what is called the emerald tablets. Does that make sense? So if anything, it is the Kemetic tradition described for a later audience. It's part of that genre of works known as Hermetic literature. Hermetic literature. And so that's where the emerald tablets are. Okay? Other questions? Okay, let's continue. I told you that we were doing the Asar Hessi. Today is the day to do the work. Get into your altar, Kemetic. Get into your altar and speak to those ancestors. Light a candle and give some food to Dr. Martin Luther King. But don't forget those folks that are in your lineage, those folks who helped you draw breath, those folks who helped you to be who you are. Maybe they're parents, maybe they're an auntie or an uncle, maybe there's someone who taught you in school. Call them. One of the things you can do is perhaps the Hessi that we did earlier, that you heard the Schaeffers do. Here are the actual words to it. It goes, Iyahu, 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 Asar Netferu. Can you see underneath it says, praise, 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 Asar the most perfect. And then, Di Sa'a Neteru. Give me divine wisdom. And the refrain of the song is Asar, Asar, Asar. That means Asar, Asar, Asar the Great. And we continue to say Asar, 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 Asar. Then you'll hear us go back into the Iyahu, 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 Asar, Neferu. That is the simple Hessi that we created so that you can give homage, just like this individual is, to Asar, so that you can draw the energy of the afterlife to do the work you must do today. Yes?
So there are a few questions. One is, how does one commune with dead ancestors? I'd like to ask my father questions who recently passed. There's a question of what's the correct directions to go to in the opening of the way. And then, is it okay to speak to an ancestor if that ancestor was hostile to African tradition?
Yes, 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 and yes. First of all, let me say to you, if you're going to commune to an ancestor, sometimes what I do is I think about them and I commune to them. And I'll go to my altar. I'll go to my altar and perhaps I have a picture of them or something that is important to them. and give them some food. Put food on your altar. By the way, don't just leave it there, right? They are symbolically and philosophically going to receive the essence of those items. But feed your ancestor. Do Hessi to your ancestor. Speak to your ancestor. Bring forth those things that they enjoyed in their physical life and speak to them. Now, it may be easiest for you to speak to them in your dreaming state, because in your dreaming state, your body is already navigating something different than the physical plane. So it may be easiest for them to come to you in a dream. But be prepared. If you speak to them, they will likely respond. And if you don't get a response, it's not because they're not trying most of the time. It's because our senses are attuned to this very sensual physical plane, where we think that almost everything that exists is something that we can see, touch, feel, taste, and hear. And the reality is that our five senses are poor implements in order to receive and communicate with those in the afterlife. So you must begin to cultivate these senses through your meditation, through your altar work, through your breath work. Those are things that you can do in order to communicate with the ancestors. Keep that one really quick. I'm gonna run down those other questions. What's the proper way to stand in the opening of the way? Our elder Baba Heru Ankrasaman Sepata started in the east and then moved right. The Shrine of Ma'at does open the way in two different ways. The first deity that is called is Hapi. Hapi is the deity of the north. So there are times that we stand north, but there are times that we do the way of the elder and we stand right. You can decide which one. Stand to the east. You can decide which one you want to do, but you should be prepared to do both, okay? The way that our elder did is good and is something that we should all know as well. And the final question, there was another question there that I forgot. It'll come back to me perhaps.
Can you have someone who's not?
Yes. Can you speak to someone who was hostile to African tradition? Listen, I think that we should recognize that our relationships with those who have transitioned were not always good, right? We had trouble with people when they were in the physical plane. Commune with them. Write that person a letter. Maybe that person who was antithetical to African tradition, who had challenges with African tradition, actually had challenges based on their experiences or things that happened to them. That if you were walking their path, you would see them more clearly. Talk to them, write them a letter. I know that there were people who came before me who were not always comfortable with my comfort with the African traditions. I know that there were. And so I've worked to try to communicate even with those ancestors because I want them to understand me, and they can maybe better understand me as ancestors than they could before.
There's
Yes.
another question.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Why is Asar painted blue?
I think that in this particular image, that color, the first answer I can say is I have no definitive answer for you. But Asar is always connected to the Hapi as well. So it could be that he's painted blue because of the waters of the Hapi in this instance. That would be my first answer to you. But there's nothing in the writing that would tell me that here. That is just my feeling based on the study that I've done. Yes, other questions?
How do you altar worship when your altar is at home and you're traveling for extended periods?
Did that come from Wasseret?
No.
I thought she was throwing me an alley up towards the hoop. You should know that the Shrine of Ma'at creates traveling altars, because you had better know that your altar should be where you are. If you need to draw energy to do work, if you need to speak to an ancestor so they can give you the intestinal fortitude to last in this very difficult world, you should actually create an altar wherever you are, okay? One of the things that the Shrine of Ma'at does, if you go to our website, shrineofma'at.org, is you're going to see that one of the priestesses of the Shrine of Ma'at will build a traveling altar for you. It comes in a beautiful little wooden box. You can open it up. It has all the implements you need to do your altar work. And then when you're ready to keep it moving, put the stuff back into a box, stick it under your arm, and take your tools with you, practitioner. Take your tools with you. Can you imagine if someone came to your house, if the carpenter came to fix a door, if the plumber came to fix a pipe, if the electrician came to fix an outlet, and they said, I'd like to help you, but I left my tools back in the shop. You would say, why are you here? Well, you are also a practitioner. You are a practitioner of spirit. And spiritual practitioners in the Kemetic tradition had implements as well. You should have perhaps a miniature version of those implements with you. I know that we have multiple implements and multiple altars, and we've always done that just because of the fact that we've been practitioners for a long time now. I'm getting old. So definitely, you'll see that we have multiple things that we carry with us as well. You should know that I think that people in the modern world, they may not know what they're doing, but you know, you have your coworkers that have pictures of their family and places they enjoy being and stuff like that on their desk. That, I think, that thinking was originally what Africans did when they created an altar. What you're seeing is an echo of an echo of an echo of an echo. So now that people have those images on their desks, those used to be altars. Why wouldn't you want to carry an image of those people who are important to you and have them with you in places where you're not going to be with them? That same thinking is what we were doing when we had altars. Yes.
Is the Coptic Church still continuing Kemetic tradition?
Yes and no. I would say they're mostly no, but partially yes. Part of what the Coptic Church is doing is they are still using a later version. It's not exactly the same, but a later version of the Kemetic language. It's closer to the ancient Kemetic language than English or Arabic or Spanish or all the other languages we speak today. So it's not an exact version of the language, but it is closer to the language than most of the languages that are spoken today, including Arabic, which is probably what most of those people speak as they go along their day most of the day. So in that sense, I would say that they have a remnant, even if it's an incomplete remnant, even if it's an artifact in which some of the pages have been removed, it is still a closer artifact than what we are using. So in that sense, I'd say yes. And in almost every other sense, I would probably say no. What's an example? When they speak of God, as most people in the Abrahamic traditions use that word, that's not even an Abrahamic word. But anyway, they say noter, which clearly seems to come from netter or netcher. So that is one of the examples of what they do. But they're Christian. The Catholic Church is Christian. So, yes.
It is said that an ancestor who you did not have a good relationship with or meant no good in life, their spirit should not be invoked. Can you speak on this?
I don't believe that to be the case. I do not believe that to be the case. I believe that you can work it out here. Sometimes when people describe communing with spirits or communing with folks who have gone on that may not have been in peace, they make it sound like those spirits are more powerful than you. You are an infinite being. There is no one or nothing that can have power or dominion over you. The only way they have dominion over you is if you allow them to. Remember, you're infinite. I mean, just think, if you're that dude that's been in the gym for years and you're buff, and you believe that this 3-year-old child can beat you in an arm wrestling match, maybe you're gonna get beat because you don't recognize how powerful you are. The same goes for spirits. When you read our text, very often, they'll even say that we are more powerful than Neteru. They'll say that in the text. Read the Merkut text. No being, not even the ancestors or the Neteru can have dominion over me. If you are invoking them, invoke them and speak to them. They cannot harm you unless you allow it. Unless you allow it. Yes, Anika. Other questions, comments? This ended up being a round robin today.
That's a lot. I guess the Kingdom wants clarification. Didn't we change the direction of the opiate way according to the solitaire?
Solitaires? There are two different ways that we do the opening of the way. We do the opening of the way facing north, and we do the opening of the way facing east. The way facing east is the oldest way. That's the way that our elder created, and that's the way that we should know both ways. There's no way that we're going to not do the opening of the way as our elder, Baba Heru Ankh Rasamat Patah, does it. But there are some times that we'll do it according to the names that we're calling. So you should be prepared to do it in two different ways.
Well, I wanted to make clarity in terms of all of the directions that we go in, because we have been, when we face north, we've been going to the right when we really should be going to the left, because we're following the direction of the Neteru that we are invoking. So Hapi is in the north, but when you go to the left, that is Serket. So that's the direction that we should be going. So you start off in the north, and then you go to your left, and you continue going left until you acknowledge all of the.
Some of you are probably going to be confused. That's fine. We'll talk more about it going forward. Okay? But know that there's nothing wrong. We're not saying there's anything wrong with doing it the way that we were taught in the Shrine of Patah. We're just saying that you should know more than one way to do it. Okay? Okay. Yes. Is that all? Most of the questions? Lots of conversation in there today, huh?
Yeah.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
And as you're speaking, today is a day you had better get up in your altars and speak to your ancestors. I woke up today in conversation. I might have actually been in conversation with my dad, and I woke up, unfortunately, which means he's not going to be happy. It's almost like I hung up on him. But so I need to communicate with him. There was a question I was asking him, and when I woke up, I was like, oh, I need to call him, and I realized I was like, wait a minute. So commune with those people who are so important to you. My father was involved in every aspect of my life. A week before he made his transition, he left me a message that says, when I get better, I'm going to come up to you, and we're going to sit down and watch movies and eat popcorn. That's a week before he made his transition. He was very important to me, and I was very important to him. And I know very well that if he's going to come to speak to someone, sorry, mom, if he's going to come speak to someone, sorry, sisters and brother, he's going to come to speak to me. Because that's how my dad and I were. He was always present in every aspect of my life, helped me with my homework after he came home from work. If mom hadn't done it already, he would do it. He was known to be the person that he was magnificent in science, math projects. The stuff that I came up with, the school was like, wow. That's something that he would definitely do with me. And so he was always part of my life. Some of the furniture in this house, he was an upholsterer by trade, a high-end upholsterer. Some of the furniture in this house he redid. So he's always, one of the reasons why I'm in Harlem is because Harlem was so critical to my father and to Anika's father. So he is still in my walk on a daily basis. Yes, Anika.
Is the information in the Bible that is directly taken from Kemet, was it transmitted through the Coptic Church?
The best answer I can have to you is I don't think so. Because when I read the Coptic text, some of them have ideas that are clearly Kemetic, I think. But I don't see those exact, in my reading, I have not read all the Coptic text, but in my reading, I don't see those passages in a way that seems like they have one that's closer to the language of the Kemetic tradition, for example, to the tradition that comes in later. I think that they might have gotten, the Christians might have taken that either directly from the Kemetic people. You might have heard, the person that's asking that question has probably been part of the discussions that I've been having on Sonnet or with several individuals. So let me say this. The person that I was having my debate with knows very little about Kemet. In fact, I asked him a question he hasn't answered because I know that he realizes that he didn't know what he was talking about. He said that when the Christians were coming forward, the Kemetic language was already extinguished. But that's not true. The Kemetic language gets extinguished at somewhere after the 4th century. That's when we see it extinguished. The last writing that we see in a version of the Kemetic language, not hieratic, but in Demotic, actually is in the Temple of Philae, and it was done in the 300s of the Common Era. The Christian tradition certainly was in existence then, was it not? See, that's why when people don't know, like my opponent, doesn't know the history, he just makes big mistakes and blunders. And it's hard to not know something and still make blunders. How do you do that? You have to know, well, I don't know what I'm talking about. So clearly, most people argue that the Gospels were written before that, right? Don't they argue that the Gospels were written before the language was extinguished? The first Gospel is believed to have been written at somewhere around 70 CE. You're saying that for nearly 200 years, the Kemetic language still existed? So I can't tell you exactly how they got it, but I can tell you that they probably got it. Perhaps it was translated in Greek and that translation doesn't exist anymore. The early Christians were were very destructive, destroying whole buildings and temples and text. And they would celebrate the destruction. St. Augustine celebrates the destruction of the I think it's the Critique of Philo that it might either be the destruction of the work of Philo or the destruction of the work of it might even be the work that I have to read the quote again. It might even be the destruction of the work of the work that's in Origen's work. The work I just mentioned the work, but I'm having a senior moment. The work of what's the name? Come on, you all know what I'm talking about because you heard me say it if you hadn't before. Remember? Contra. What's the name of the text again? Celsus. There it is. Celsus. He might even be celebrating destruction of the work of Celsus. And these are multiple books. They would destroy them. You know, the early Christian church going into the Roman Catholic Church, when they said that, even today, when we say that we approve of something, some people say we've given it our imprimatur, right? That's the phrase that is used. Some of you might not have heard that, but I know I have heard it. And that comes from the stamp that the Roman Catholic Church would put on books saying, you can read this. They literally would stamp it. And some of those books that were stamped, I have seen in old libraries. I'm talking about during my years, I saw that stamp. Other things you couldn't read, they would destroy. So we're not positive how they got it. But I will tell you that some of those passages, for example, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, when you look at the book of Proverbs, you're going to see sections of the maxims of Amenemhotep, verbatim. Scholars believe this is exactly the same. This is exactly it. They have it exactly. So whoever was writing it, no, it wasn't King Solomon. Whoever was writing it had the exact copy. How they got it, we can't tell you that exactly. I can't tell you that exactly. But it's the same words. Yes.
Is there ever a point when libations are not required to reach ancestors? For instance, I've kept an altar for years, but I recently began to feel that I didn't need an altar to commune or connect with them.
You absolutely do not need an altar to commune with the ancestors. You don't. I'm just saying this is one of the ways that using an altar is like focusing your attention in a way that you might not be able to focus your attention in other ways. Let me give you an example. Quick story. Look at Anika. She's smiling because she knows it's probably not going to be as quick as she'd like it to be. We live in Harlem. Parking is terrible. I park the car everywhere. Everywhere. That means that sometimes if I haven't driven the car for a day or two, I might forget where I parked. Guess what's one of the best ways to remember where you parked? To actually walk down the block that you think it might be. You go, oh, I remember now. Why is it I can't just do it standing on my stoop? Sometimes there is a channel that you should open in order to proceed in a particular direction. I'm saying that altar work is one of the ways that you can access your ancestors. But remember, I also said you're an infinite being. You can access your ancestors in any way, but have you cultivated the ability to do so? I'm telling you that altar work is one of the ways that you can cultivate that ability. Was that a very long story? No. Okay, see, I even put a period there. See, put a period on it.
What kind of oils do you recommend for altars, and what kind of energy is invoked by frankincense and myrrh?
Frankincense and myrrh has been a fragrance. It has been products that have been used for both the recognition of royalty and for the connection to the ancestors for thousands of years, before the Christian tradition, you should know. So if you'd like to use frankincense and myrrh to commune with ancestors, of course you could use that. Let me also say that the ancient Kemetic people created a particular incense that's usually called kapet. Hopefully the shrine at one point will start producing kapet again. They use that to commune with ancestors. But if you have a particular ancestor that you had a close relationship with, why don't you use a fragrance that they liked? That's one of the things that you can do. Boy, I gave my father so many bottles of Old Spice in the years. I'm not even sure if he liked Old Spice. I know that he always accepted it because his son gave it to him. I gave him the soap on the rope Old Spice, the spray Old Spice, the bottles of I gave him so much Old Spice. It would be one of the things I might want to use for my father because I know that he would recognize what I was doing. Does that make sense?
The question is, what is kapet?
Kapet is an incense that was created. I'm not going to give you the whole. That would take longer. There's actually a let's call it a recipe for creating kapet. Sometimes you'll also hear it called kaifi, but these are some of the incenses that were used by the Kemetic people. They would create it and they would use it.
The question was also, what kind of oils would you use?
What I'm saying is, consider what oil you use. I can't tell you for every single. You would have to give me more information for me to help you in that instance. But use a fragrance that's connected to the person. That's what I would use first, right? My father didn't wear frankincense and myrrh. That doesn't mean to me that if I'm using frankincense and myrrh, I'm going to send them away. But for me, that would be one of the things I would do to reach my dad. Give the ancestor the general sustenance and even perhaps use some of the things that they enjoy. My father wore, just like I wear a falcon bracelet, my father wore an eagle bracelet in gold I think he got it when he went to Guyana. It's Guyanese gold. Guyanese gold is quite nice, right? That bracelet sits on my altar, right? Because I know that this is one of the things that in my assessment would have more of his energy. So I have some of those things there. His ID card I have there, right? I remember he got a picture of himself in crystal. You know, you have those three-dimensional pictures in crystal. When he gave it to me, I thought it was creepy. I was like, he looks like a ghost. But as an ancestor, it makes more sense now. So I have that there as well. It's one of the three-dimensional images I have of my father. Think of that. Pictures aren't three-dimensional. This is. So now I really love it. Now I really love it. So just think about that.
How do we open the mouth of the deceased that have been gone for a while?
Two things I would say to you. There is an actual description of the opening of the mouth ceremony. I think it's called Wepa. I think it's an actual Kemetic name. But you'll see it in the Reyu Perta Meruinger. It describes the opening of the mouth. And they also use the device to open the mouth as well. So I would read the actual prescription, directions. Use the Kemetic text as your sacred GPS. They will help you to understand where you are going and how to get there. Read them. It's actually in the Reyu Perta Meruinger. That's most of the questions. You know, I have said for a long time that as practitioners, Anik and I have been doing this for over 30 years. We should probably have some regular meetings where we just answer questions. I'll try to do those sorts of things soon. Probably on YouTube, there'll be some times that I'll just be open. Maybe I'll talk about something and I'll say, now the phones are open. I'm comfortable doing that because I know I'm going to get some trolls. I can handle trolls. I want the trolls to come. I want to talk to them. They don't seem to realize I want to talk to them, right? As long as they can be respectful. If they can't be respectful, I have tools for that too. But as long as they're respectful, talking to me about why my tradition is evil doesn't scare me. Some of those trolls come from Sonetta. Do I look scared when people say that to me on Sonetta? Do you think you typed in the chat room is going to scare me now when I saw the person say that in my face? Come on now. I have no problem with that. So I'm probably going to do something very similar to that soon as well. Let me say to you, the divine force in me greets the divine force in you. I'm so pleased to be able to be here with you, to be talking to you, to be hopefully assisting you as you are doing your work, because no one can do your work for you. So I'm hoping that this conversation helps you do your work. Get up in them altars and speak to your ancestors today. With that, can I ask Anika to come forward for the final affirmation?
Okay, Dwa for such a wonderful conversation in the chat, and for all of you who have been so positive, even when we were dealing with some of the trolls, the way you responded, I think, was excellent, and I'm very excited that we were able to keep the peace in the room. So Dwa for that, Dwa for all of your donations, and for Mr. T for starting the matching donation that really helped. We appreciate you, Dwa, for that.
Dwa.
And I also wanted to remind everyone, we are still collecting applications for people who are interested in initiation. You can get the application on our website at www.shrineofmaat.org. So download the application, fill it out, and once you submit it, we will make sure that it gets to our WEN so they can review it and call you in for an interview to make sure that you're a good match and we're a good match for you.
When she says call you in, it's virtual.
Yes. It's
okay, just so you know. So if you're someplace distant, please still submit your application. They're going to meet with you.
Yes, so we have people all over the world who have become initiates, people from Ghana, Nigeria. So don't feel that you have to be from any particular place. You could be anywhere in the world and still participate in initiation. So please make sure to submit your application. And we still have seats available for those of you who are interested in traveling with us to both Kemet and Ghana. So if you are interested, we will be leaving July 31st. We'll be returning August 19th. If you're doing both trips, if you're only doing Kemet, it'll be July 31st until August 11th. And then for Ghana, it's August 11th to August 19th. So if you're interested, please let us know. Go on the website, which is www.centerformaat.com. And you can reserve your seat by putting your deposit down, or you can go ahead and pay for the entire trip. But all the information is available on our website. But please do it soon before all the seats have been filled. Okay. So Dwau for everything. We appreciate you, family. Again, we enjoy the conversation that we've had with you. And I would like to end with our closing affirmation. Usually we do the Amasua. Today I'm going to do the Rupu, which is an affirmation you can do for yourself every day to make sure that you are moving in divine balance. So if you could stand in the pose of adoration, which is your left foot forward and your left hand forward, right hand back, right foot back, and repeat after me. Rupu Nuku, Amiku, Kemam, Keperu, and Enter, Hayu. I am that I am, a shining being, dwelling in the light, of the Most High. Thank you to the divine, and thank you to all of you. Many of you have asked, where do I find these quotes and texts? Have you written the opening of the way online? Yes, if you go to our website, shrineofmaat.org, you will see me actually doing the opening of the way in the video, and you'll see the words on the page. The Amasu is there as well. The Rupu is there. And those two prayers came directly from the Reu and Pert and Heru and Ger, which is the chapters of coming forth today from nights, misnomered the Book of the Dead. You will find them actually there, especially if you use the Wallace Budge version, and you'll be able to see it both in the glyphs, the transliteration, and in English. So feel free to look at those. Okay,
yes.
So, Dwau.
Family, it's always been wonderful to be with you on our Sundays. Can I say that I'm hoping that you're going to continue to be a high-level practitioner and do the work necessary to reclaim and to rejuvenate the traditions of our ancestors. I say to you, Shem and Ma'at, go forward in divine balance. We'll see you soon. Peace.